We are ready. Okay, Erev Shavuot. We have a lot to do. Firstly, I would like to share with you for a few minutes the events of the Kohelet Award experience, and then we're going to lead into our subject today, which is built on what we've been speaking about. Okay? So Baruch Hashem, as you know, and I think Tanya sent around an article to this morning. Check your emails. Tanya sent around, or will be sending around, an article by Jonathan Rosenblum, good friend and writer, about Kohelet and the awards. Very, very beautifully written article. And she also sent around the video, the Kohelet video that was made in honor of the award ceremony and the dinner. Essentially, the award, the Achdus Award, was given to Kohelet, one of the four awardees, for their work in bridging the gap. But what that really means is that, and it really fits in entirely to our ongoing subject, and I recommend everybody who did not hear last class, because it's the foundation for this class, and it also helps develop the previous class, the last two classes, to go and listen to them either on Torah Anytime or on the Facebook page that I now have because of Elisheva Zimmerman. So, what Kohelet is doing is totally building on this great concern and maybe problem that exists. And that is not just in Eretz Yisrael between the religious and the not religious, but throughout the world, within humanity today, is a great degree of disconnection from others that are unlike us. Often people relate to others. If their relationships are not in order, the way it works is people relate to others as instruments or tools for their own benefit. And if the other person is not a adequate or cooperative enough instrument or tool, then they become a threat. And once they become a threat, they have to be marginalized and treated with have to be devalued, marginalized, and of course separated from. In Israel, the Kohelet came to help two groups of people who were afraid of each other relieve themselves of their fears, their assumptions, their misunderstandings, and face each other one-on-one, face-to-face, and recognize that the other, whether it be the Haredi or the Chiloni, is not a threat at all, and could actually be a friend they could become close with and learn from and grow from. And by creating 12,000 people learning together, 6,000 pairs of Chilonim and Haredim learning together, and each one becoming friends, you effectively, what Sealy has done is effectively started a movement which allows people to open that door that was closed between them and the other, and begin to relate to the other person as a valuable asset in their life, not as an instrument and not as a threat. This is what she's done, and this all comes down to, and this is recognized, and President Rivlin, who's so sweet and just reminds everybody of like Zadie, got up to speak, and being that it's Eretz Yisrael and it's officially not, a most religious state, but the first thing that came out of his mouth was, we became a nation at Har Sinai, Ke'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, that's the famous Rashi. And the groups that were awarded, especially Tzili, very much I feel above all, was understood this. This fits in very, very well. And thank you with your good wishes on the Facebook page for the awards. And hopefully what we're going to do with it is take it here to our community, as you well know. There hopefully will be an article. Tammy, I don't know if Tammy's here. No. She's writing an article. She wrote an article to appear in the papers this week, the local papers, about 5 towns, Kohelet, what we're doing, what we're trying to do. But in any case, this whole initiative is very much a product of the reality of today, which is a lack of skill, of knowing of how to have relationships with Hashem, with others, and what we're going to talk about today, with the self, with ourselves. We explained, based on the article that I've quoted and that I think, Tanya, did you send the link? There's a link on the Facebook page. The article by Menachem Krakowski in Chakira 2007 Fall Journal.
I'll send all the links.
Send the links. We based our ideas on this concept of the Eitz Hadas leading straight into Cain and Hevel. Turns out I called Dr. Krakowski the other day. He is, you remember the secret weapon, Heshi, you know that? He's Heshi's cousin. Literally, they have the same great-grandfather. So second or third cousin. So I have a meeting with him on the 20th to delve much further into all these ideas. But in any case, we used his approach to Eitz Hadas and Cain and Hevel. And we said the following extremely simple, straightforward, but powerful idea, which is when a person eats from the Eitz Hadas, which means, and as Rambam says, we showed the Rambam, this sin, the big sin, the one and only real sin, because after that everything else is inevitable. The real sin that humanity, that we commit, is we allow ourselves to become enamored with the idea of being entirely subjective. Once we allow ourselves to explore that, that's the sin. Then Rambam says, therefore he ate, or she ate. Therefore we will be subjective. Therefore we will find the following pattern. We start seeing things entirely from our point of view. Everything beyond ourselves is there for us. Either we can use things to express and to establish our goals and our very limited, very finite, very often wrong particular perspective. And if the other people in our lives don't help us achieve what we've decided is our needs, irregardless of everyone else, irregardless of the truth, because we can no longer see truth, if they don't help us and they're no longer a good instrument for us to use for ourselves, then they become a threat. Cain had a brother. To Cain, his brother was Hevel. And that's going to be our subject today. Much more depth into Hevel. His brother was Hevel. He was devalued completely. He didn't see him. He didn't hear him. He saw no purpose in his existence because he didn't serve Cain's purposes. In fact, he was an alternative. He actually had a relationship with Hashem where Cain was disconnected and extremely self-absorbed, only saw his own self-interest as expressed by his giving the worst to God. Right? Cain was according to the Medrash, and not to be taken literally, the offspring of the Nachash and the Isha, which is explained last week. Then there was no actual snake that had actual relations with actual woman. And all right, there was the subjectivity combined with passion and determination to have the right to live by that. That leads to the narcissistic person who can only see themselves to lesser or greater degrees, which leads to total devaluation of the other, which leads to viewing the other if the other isn't a tool, then they become a threat, and then he kills them. And when Hashem says, "Aye, Hevel achicha," where is Hevel, your brother? And he says, I don't know. That's the truth, the absolute truth. They do not know where anybody else is. So what we're going to talk about now is to take it even further. Because Matan Torah, Kabbalah Torah is upon us in Motzei Shabbos. And Kabbalah Torah, we said it expels the venom of the snake. In other words, it opens our eyes. Ata horesa, you saw, so you know that there really is Hashem. And when Hashem introduced himself, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Hotzesicha me'eretz Mitzrayim, we are being told that the reason Hashem went through all that so-called effort, not that it's effort for Hashem, to put on a whole show in Mitzrayim with 10 makos and all that. What was that all for? Hashem could have changed the Egyptians' will in a split second. Hashem didn't need that. It was all to prove to Klal Yisrael and the world that I am involved. I know everything. I control everything. I watch you. I care about you. I distinguish between you and the Mitzri. You are part of something bigger than yourself. You are embraced. You are loved. You are protected. You are within something much greater than yourself that you're part of, that helps you understand who you are. That's what Hashem, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, that Asher Hotzesicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. The Klal Yisrael recognize a fundamental position of humanity vis-a-vis themselves the others and God at Har Sinai. What was that position? The position of a person in the world with all these three relationships is very simple in a way, but so hard for people to understand, to grasp, and to operate with this, according to this. Parents have it hard, spouses have it hard. The position of a person is the following. There is the human being who Hashem created truly as a separate entity. The human being feels and experiences and has freedom to be their own person. Hashem does not interfere in our lives on a moment-by-moment basis. That's because we're really individuals on our own, separate, with Bechira. We are creators. But what are we here to create? Well, in addition to being real, absolutely separate individuals, and I just want to point out anyone who's learned the Tanya goes in a little bit different direction and says we really don't exist, we're really not separate, we're all just figments of Hashem's imagination, there really is no separateness. That is a mahalach of the Tanya, but we're going with the Rambam, who says Ein od milvado means that everything exists, but nothing has a real existence other than Hashem. When it says Ein od milvado, it doesn't mean we don't exist. We truly exist as separate individuals with Bechira, and our choices allow us to violate and even deny God's presence. That's how much free choice we have. Hashem has given us that freedom. But the only thing that really exists eternally and that we are part of is Hashem. So a person is a separate entity. Okay. In addition, you have to include the other truth that they're part of something great. They're part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will for the world. What's the relationship? Hashem has given us tremendous creative freedom, bechira chavshus, subjectivity, which we're supposed to keep in balance. That's the sin when we lose it. But it's good to be subjective, otherwise we can't put our creative mark on anything. So we're subjective. What do we do with our creativity? We put our mark on anything in the world we can. Our relationships, we invent things, we beautify things, we create things, cities, new, all kinds of new inventions. We do everything in every area of life. We put our mark on it. But what's our mark? Our mark is that through the mark that I've put on this, you can now see Hashem better. I have used my creative ability to add or to contribute some capacity for humanity to connect to Hashem through my invention, through my relationships, through the way I speak, through what I've written, through the type of life I lead, through my influence on people. I have created a capacity to be aware of the real Creator. So I use my creative energies to make it possible for others to become aware of the real Creator. So Hashem needs us because He's concealed Himself. He needs us to find ways to reveal Him, and He needs us to be creative in order to do that. So we are separate, but we're here as separate people so that we can put our unique mark on something that's much greater than ourselves, much, absolutely true, eternal, is God's, is really Hashem's world itself. We can be players, partners with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The way a person relates to themselves then is, I matter. Hashem needs me because He concealed Himself. He's given me my creative abilities so that I can put my mark on whatever I touch in this world, and that mark will be that through me, because of my mark, people can become more aware of the real Creator. So I matter. Others are doing it too in their own way. They matter. And we're all doing it as partners with Hashem. So there's three relationships, me and myself, me and others, me and Hashem. When we disconnect ourselves from Hashem, Hashem becomes invisible. We are alone. When we are alone in this world, it becomes a very scary world, as we said. And we have to start figuring out how we're going to survive here. And then we start making deals with nature and with other people. We enter into utilitarian, instrumentalized relationships, right? And then we become disconnected from others because nobody likes being an instrument and nobody likes being devalued. So others reject us. We become deeper and more alone. And then we devalue our own lives. This is how it goes. Devaluing Hashem's existence and our role vis-a-vis Hashem. Getting into our own world, then devaluing others. Being, again, each time we devalue what's outside ourselves, the other, we become more alone. We become more afraid. Eventually we devalue our own life And we say, not like Chaim said about Hevel, but we say Hevel, Havolim, it's all Hevel. Our life is Hevel. The fact that we live in a world today where people deeply devalue all three, okay, devalue relationship with Hashem, devalue others, and devalue themselves is evident everywhere. A deep disconnection from religion, from spirituality, and I'm not talking about going through the motions, a real connection to Hashem, which it will express itself in a real valuation of other people, even if they're different, and which will express itself in a valuation of the self. But when you see, like you might have seen the article, that since Rosh Hashanah, in the religious community and like that we know of, that we hear about, the Frum community, New York, maybe Chicago, LA, whatever, the number 2 months ago of suicides and accidental deaths by overdose and alcoholism is close to 70. Everyone, and kids between the age of 20 and 30. The point here is no value for life. No value for their own lives. This is the natural progression. Disconnection from God, disconnection from others, and then questioning the value of your own life. Now, we're going to explore today the area of valuing our own lives. Okay, so in order to, and because this becomes fundamental for Kabbalah Torah, when we're Makabel Torah, because we realize our position vis-a-vis Hashem, we connect Hashem, we see Hashem suddenly, our role vis-a-vis Hashem, and we're expected to behave the same way Hashem behaves to us. Hashem lets us be. He gives us our freedom. He lets us operate on our own. He doesn't get down every time we make a mistake. He doesn't destroy us. That's how we're supposed to operate with others. Let them be. Parents with children, let them be. They're their own people, on their own terms. Right? They have a right to have their annoying personality, their stupid sense of humor, their horrible way of dressing. They're allowed to be who they are. And they're allowed to figure things out also through trial and error like we do. And they're allowed to have ups and downs. And they're allowed to not cooperate with us and not agree with us and refuse to be an instrument. They're allowed to. And they are not viewed as threats. If we have confidence with who we are and what our role is vis-a-vis Hashem, nobody's a threat. Nobody's a threat. So opening our eyes and connecting to Hashem means that other people are not a threat, and also we stop devaluing our own lives. So the whole thing is a package deal. And ultimately on Shavuot, it's not just accepting the laws of the Torah and the behaviors of the Torah. The whole point of Matan Torah was that we became intertangled with Hashem, so that who we are is very much part of who HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, and we are partners with Hashem and expected to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu not as totally separate than us, but not which leaves us alone, but also not knowing that we don't have complete freedom to do anything we want. By the way, the world today, you see both extremes. On the one hand, you see in the liberal world this total kind of like not just allowance, a celebration of complete and total independence of the subjective self without any parameters, so that you can be as subjective as you want. You could you could choose your gender on a daily basis, okay, and everybody has to respect that. And you could have any, you could identify, everything is a fluid. Everything is fluid. Total extreme emphasis on I as a separate person with my own subjective opinion, and that's celebrated. Part of nothing else, answering to nobody, having no boundaries, no protocol, no societal expectations, zero. That's the extreme of the self, disconnected from everything else. The other side, which is unfortunately on display, is you could see this unfortunately even in some of the in our world, in some of the extreme, closed, more right-wing Haredi societies, where the system exists. You're expected to check off, we have to be able to check off every single protocol, like on the system, that you fulfilled it. If you deviate a little bit, you are a threat. You are out. You can't come near me. I'm afraid of you. I devalue you. There's no self at all. You see both extremes. It's the combination of both that creates a healthiness, and it starts with knowing the self. So we have a whole sefer written by Shlomo HaMelech, and we've talked about this in the past, but it's going to have a new twist now, regarding how you view the value of life. And it's called Kohelet. And guess which word appears the most in Kohelet? Hevel. Hevel, right? We're talking about Hevel. In every single person, just like Ish and Ishas in every single person, now we're taking it further. Don't forget the story of Cain and Hevel are also part of the 6 days. They're also prototypes. They're also microcosm of the human psyche, what's going on. When we become subjective, right, that's called Cain. The Nachash and the Isha gave birth to Cain. Cain is the person who is disconnected, therefore afraid, therefore alone, therefore devaluing others, devaluing God, devaluing his brother. But he's very concerned because he's alone and insecure with establishing himself in quantifiable ways. Cain is the real estate, the person who has the real estate broker, right, or owner. He has property. So the more property, the more money, the more power, it's quantifiable. Okay, and we assess and we present ourselves as substantial based on quantifiable physical things. On the other hand, in each of us still exists, because we still are, there's still the potential, still exists in each of us a Hevel. A Hevel is the part of us that does not measure our value based on what we can show others or use to overpower others or hoard it over others. The part of us that's Hevel is the shepherd, the one that doesn't, that truly strives to experience a connection to what is beyond them, to God himself, and actually achieves some level of appreciating Hashem's connection to them and loving Hashem, who has given them everything and who has invested in them. Hevel is the part of us that's still capable of making a spiritual connection. Okay. But Hevel is ethereal, and there's nothing quantifiable about what he's doing. And it's very long-term and eternally, directed. And right here, right now, he wanders and he has sheep. And he offers the best of his flock to God, which indicates that human life is devoted to God. The animal, we don't kill people, but the animal, as an expression of a person, is devoted to God. The reality is that unless we have our Torah, unless we have a system to address this imbalance of the two parts of ourselves, Cain will kill Hevel, period. In us, the Cain will kill the Hevel. But Hevel doesn't actually die because the Am Yisrael becomes the Hevel, the shepherds, the ones connecting to Hashem, but it will try to kill off Hevel all the time by devaluing. That means in ourselves. Okay, in ourselves. We have the part of us that needs to assure our substantiality because we're disconnected from Hashem. If we were connected to Hashem, we'd be very substantial. Nobody would be able to take that away from us. But when we're disconnected, who are we? We're a little blip, a little piece of dust in a cosmos. We have to assure that we are something. So we boast and we self-promote and we gather wealth and have power and take risks. Okay. That was going to always kill the Hevel part of us. Even that pintaliyid, that little aspect of us that still wants to connect, it's going to die because the other part is so urgent and so immediate and so literal and so practical. Like the Hevel part is just, maybe on Shabbos or on Yom Kippur it emerges for a minute and here and there, but it's submerged so much by Cain. That's the reality. Cain kills Hevel. How does he end up when he kills Hevel? Where is he? He's a drifter. He's got no place. Nobody likes him. He can't settle down. He never finds peace. That's it. That's what happens when you kill the Hevel. Okay. So who is this Hevel in us that's so easily destroyed, so easily, devalued and eliminated? Who is this Hevel in us? So Kohelet says, Hevel, Havolim, Akol, Hevel. The approach that I'm using today, to give credit where credit is due, another fantastic article given to me by Debbie Steinhorn. Just, sometimes it's like a gift. Here it is. I look at it, okay, I'm starting to read. I'm like, oh my goodness. This is one of those articles. You can find it if anybody wants it later. For the viewers, it's Eitan, E-T-H-A-N, Eitan Dorshav, Ecclesiastes, fleeting and timeless. This is his basic thesis. And we'll go through the psukim a little bit to show it. It's a long article. If anybody wants it, we'll send a link. It's online. It's online.
So far you've got about 10 links coming to you.
Okay. All right. So the Kohelet is a very, if you read Kohelet carefully, make a study of it, which I can't say I have made a thorough study, but going through this article, I've looked through it more carefully than I had in the past. So Kohelet, you begin to see in Kohelet that it goes through like it transitions. It starts out seeming full of depression and despair, and then there's like a certain acceptance, and then there's a certain like enthusiasm and celebration. All of the Hevel. Hevel is first portrayed, the world is first portrayed as all Hevel. Being what we know about the person Hevel, okay, the character Hevel, or the Hevel in us, which is a little more abstract, but think about the person Hevel. What we know about this Hevel was he didn't live much. He left no footprint. There was no kids, no city built after him, no inventions. There's nothing to show for his life. He was killed by Cain, and that was the end of the story. So it's easy to make an assumption that Hevel is the pointless, existence that has no future, that starts and stops, and doesn't. That's it. It's over. Like, don't waste your time with it. Don't waste your time with it because it's weak, it's helpless, and it doesn't survive. Right? Don't waste your time with things that are Hevel. And Kohelet starts out by saying, "Oh, Hevel, everything's Hevel. Everything in this world is Hevel." He explored, he investigated, he tried it, and he saw that nothing really is of substance. It's all Hevel. So he tried gathering wealth, and he tried having palaces and orchards and flocks, and it's all Hevel. And he tried having all kinds of connections and acquaintances and allies, and it's all Hevel. And then he gathered some even wisdom. Later he'll speak differently about wisdom, and it's Hevel. And then he saw that the wicked perish and the righteous succeed, and that's Hevel. And then he saw the righteous perish and the wicked succeed, and that's Hevel. And everything's Hevel. So our first assumption, the classical approach is, well, Hevel means, based on who we know to be Hevel, and how do we use the word Hevel today? Hevel, what's Hevel? Vapor. Okay? What is vapor? It's not substantial. We often translate Hevel, unless you heard this shiur before, we often translate Hevel as vain, vainglory, vanity. That's the classic interpretation. What does vanity mean? It's false. It's not true. Basically, vanity is this false narrative of something that has substance that doesn't. It's all vain. Hevel, and vanity. Vanity is a devaluation. When you call something vain, it's devalued. Okay? So we think about Hevel as being of no value. But the problem is that if you interpret Hevel as being of no value, then you run into a problem a little later in the Sefer when he starts very much valuing life itself. So, for example, he says in Perek Hey, Pasuk 17, about this life that's Hevel. V'hinei asher ra'iti ani tov asher yafeh lechol v'lishtos uliros tova b'chol amalo sheyamal tachas hashemes mispar yimei chayav asher nasan lo helokim ki hu chelko. You know what I realized he said? It is very good. Yes, in fact, it is beautiful to eat and drink and experience goodness with all the toils that he toils under the sun. In other words, love what you're doing, embrace it, work hard, but eat and drink and celebrate it. Because with all the toils that you toil under the sun, in the number of the days of this life that Hashem gave you, because this is your portion. Your portion is the number of days you have. So invest in them and love them and embrace them. That doesn't sound like it's Hevel. If everything's devalued, then why invest? Why enjoy? So he shifts in the middle of the Sefer, and he comes. It seems to be that he shifts because he's first elaborated on the initial kind of like reaction of people to life and to the, to everything in life as Hevel. And then he starts to talk about, no, so nevertheless, it's good. How could you say nevertheless it's good? It all comes down to what Hevel means. So we said that Hevel is often thought of as vain and vanity. However, when we see how the word Hevel is used in Torah and we evaluate Hevel's life, we come to a different conclusion. Hevel lived a fleeting life, right? A very fleeting life. He has no footprint, as we said. He was killed. Nevertheless, he is the first character in the Torah that Hashem is pleased with. So he did something right. The words used to explain Hashem's pleasure with Hevel, anybody remember the words? Vayisha Hashem el Hevel ve'el minchaso. Hashem Vayisha. Now this becomes a very important word. Vayisha. And Hashem, from what's the shorish? Vayisha is from the shorish of? Yeshua, which means save. When you're saved, it means you're in danger and you are saved. Delivered from destruction, from the pit. Delivered from the pit, from the trap, from destruction. What is the pit? What is the trap? What is the deep hole? The nether, the ultimate failure that you're delivered from, that Hevel is delivered from. This is it. The trap is that humanity, the Kayans of the world, are stuck in a whirlpool, okay, that goes round and round and round and drags them down, of desperately attempting to establish themselves without a connection to Hashem. It can't be done. If a person has no purpose vis-a-vis God, they're just here in this world to promote themselves. They live in a world of fear and worry and urgency and constantly seeking proofs and validations that they'll never get because they have no substance if they're not part of something greater than themselves, which is Hashem, who's the only thing that's eternal and real. So that's the trap of humanity.
But Cain also tried to connect to Hashem.
No, he did lip service, instrumentalized. We spoke about the instrumentalizing. I do this for you, so you do this for me. It's not a connection of love. It's without feeling, as he gave the worst of what he had, but to fulfill his duty. He was the classic instrumentalizer of God. So this word, Vayesha Hashem, delivered, represents that by Hevel's capacity to get past himself and truly appreciate his connection to Hashem, that he's part of Hashem's big plan here, and seek out what that is and see how he could put his mark on it and devote his life to God, which is represented by his korban. He escaped the trap. Vayisha Hashem as Hevel. Hashem delivered him. His connection to Hashem delivered him. How do we know that he lived successfully? That he is the model of successful living, which means it's not about your children and the monuments you leave and the organizations that bear, or the buildings that bear your name, or the endowments. It's not about anything. He leaves nothing, but he succeeded because he connected to Hashem in a real way, and he was delivered from the disconnection, the alienation. Because the last words Moshe said to Am Yisrael in Devarim, Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Chaf Tes, the last words he uttered before the next pasuk, which says, and Moshe went up on the mountain to die. He said, Ashrecha Yisrael, how fortunate are you? How forward moving are you? Really, Hirsch explains it as forward moving. How forward moving are you, Yisrael? Am Nosha B'Hashem. You are a nation that is delivered from this trap by your connection to Hashem. So if Hevel is Vayisha Hashem as El Hevel, Ve'el Minchaso, and the last words of Moshe Rabbeinu is Ashrecha Yisrael Am Nosha, that's the whole story. To achieve this, which we're at Kabbalah Satorah, that's what happened. We saw the big picture. We saw who we are outside ourselves. That helps us be delivered from this trap. And that is success. So what's happening in Kohelet is like this. It's the natural human progression when we evaluate ourselves and our lives. First, we accept that Hevel means not pointless. Hevel is not pointless. Hevel is not vain. Hevel is fleeting. Hevel means fleeting. Constitutes novel. We say on Yom Kippur. What does that mean? Dissipates or shrivels in no time. In other words, a beautiful flower blooms and then it it shrivels up, and a cloud comes and passes. It just goes so fast. That's novel. It's fleeting. Yes, we see the fleetingness of life, and this helps us also, I hope, when we are confronted with like tragedies that people have to deal with, terrible sadness and loss, especially people of a young age that are suddenly ill and gravely ill, hanging on for their lives, fighting things. Young people, like this one we just davened for, Rezel Bastina, and you say, so the first thing that happens is the beginning of Kohelet. We devalue life because it's fleeting. What's the point? It goes so fast. I can't achieve half the things I want to achieve. It's, I give up. And you know what you give up on? The kind part actually begins to give up. What's the point of accumulating wealth? What's the point of accumulating, establishing myself? What's the point of, building this house and achieving this degree and having this position? What's the point? It's all so fleeting. There is a capacity for the human being to come to that point and be in despair. The beginning of Kohelet expresses a lot of despair. But then as he progresses, and what a human being does also, is they come to a point of acceptance. Acceptance. Life is transient. That's true. Life is fleeting. But the fact that it's fleeting doesn't mean that it's worthless. That in my small time that I'm here, I can achieve something of real value. And he starts to tell you what that value is in the beginning of the Sefer. He starts stressing wisdom. Wisdom. Wisdom means true wisdom. Real wisdom means knowing that the one thing that we are here to achieve, the prize, what Hevel did, is recognize ourselves as an extension of, part of, agent of, partner to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and put our mark on whatever we touch, even if it's for a short time. It's valuable, although it's transient. That's the second level of acceptance. Okay? By the end of Kohelet, okay, he starts already the last third-ish, he starts saying, enjoy it, celebrate it, live life with gusto, whatever time you have here, because it's fleeting. Don't worry about it. Don't get caught up in it. Don't let it bring you down. Do what you've got to do with enthusiasm and embrace it, because what matters in the end is not how much time a person had, but if they've secured some type of real awareness, real truth, real chachma while they were here, to avoid or pull themselves out of the pitfall of humanity. That's Hevel. Hevel means it's fleeting, but Hevel was the person that succeeded. That was no shot. And Am Yisrael's capacity to move ahead in life, despite the fleetingness, despite the insecurity that we have here, not knowing what's going to be tomorrow, Am Yisrael is the key example of a nation that keeps figuring out ways to advance, to improve, to invest with joy in life and in the betterment of life. And we know very well that our situation is precarious, and yet it doesn't stop us. Am Yisrael has learned the lesson and is a nation that cannot be stopped, despite the frailty of the human existence. We still keep going, fully embracing and investing in every new possibility, for the betterment of the world and investing in Torah and learning everybody. And we'll never learn the whole Torah, Kol HaTorah Kulo, but who cares? You still invest in what you could learn and put your own chedushim, find your own chedushim in it, and make your own conclusions in it, and enjoy it while you're here. So the relationship of a person to themselves, okay? cannot be one where they devalue themselves and their worth here because life is fleeting. And don't forget, when we say life is fleeting, it shrinks, it kind of deflates Kayin as well as Hevel. Both can be deflated by the notion, like the spiritual quest can also fall prey to this feeling like, what's the point? I'll never know Kol HaTorah Kulo. I'll never be a tzaddik. I'll never really overcome these terrible challenges, these obstacles I have in my spiritual development. I keep falling back. And who knows how much time I have, and all these circumstances that are getting in my way. So my spiritual quest, I despair about it. How much, every Yom Kippur I try, I'm inspired, and then a week later I'm deflated again, back in the same pattern. I despair of my spiritual quest. I despair of my physical quest. That's already a madrega, because before that is investing in the physical achievements and the material things and the covet and that's the first stage. Second stage is, you know what? Who knows? If the despair extends to the Hevel, to the part of us that's spiritually aware, and we give up on our attempt to achieve in that area, okay? Then we have to know that the reason we are despairing about our spiritual capacity to achieve something is because we've lost sight of the prize, which is to shift the paradigm and recognize that a human being has this is what we said in the beginning, is a person who can put their mark on whatever they encounter, and no matter how short their life is, and their mark, as long as their contribution in this world, in whatever area they're operating in, if that contribution helps other people become more aware of Hashem, who we're all part of, then that person succeeded. Now, in this attainment, the playing field is completely level. There is no discrepancy between the greatest Talmid Chacham, the person born to the most righteous parents, the average simple person who knows little Torah, the person who knows very little Torah, the person whose circumstances are good and circumstances are bad, the person in Auschwitz, the person in Eretz Yisrael living the dream, There's no difference. Every single person can do something where their individual self, can express itself and make a mark on somebody, on something. And that mark is not a mark. That mark is a doorway to help anybody who is affected by the way they speak, by their relationships, by their inventions, by their chidushim, by their lessons that they, as a teacher, or their leadership in a community or a government or whatever. Anybody that's affected recognizes that the human being is part of something, is part of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, an agent of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, has what to offer, connects to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, gets out of the trap of the self and the disconnection from others. Anyone who can reconnect people to each other so that people can feel that surge, that power, that life force of the achdus, of the joint, effort that everybody puts in together, for a cause. The reason this whole award prizes thing became a national, Unity Day with Unity prizes. The whole thing happened because the mayor of Yerushalayim, Nir Barkat, saw the surge of achdus that was happening during those 18 days 2 summers ago when those boys were kidnapped, and he saw the way the people and the families were uplifted and enthused and inspired and just felt on such a high by the power of the achdus, of connecting to each other. He said we have to establish this as a yearly thing. He made Yom HaAchdut and the Pras HaAchdut. The point is that if we can help people experience that, a reconnection to the other, to Hashem, to themselves, that gives life. In other words, let's say it this way, and then I'll end and take your comments. If we go the tikkun, we go backwards, okay? Instead of Kayin killing Hevel, right? Suddenly Hevel becomes valued. The spiritual quest, that's very amorphous. It's not tangible, not quantifiable. That's valued. Those people striving for that are valued. They're not threats. They are leaders. They are guides. They're appreciated. The other comes back into focus. even if they're different than us. And again, especially if we can learn something from them, the other comes back into focus. That's the tikkun. Then we go back further. We don't eat from the Eitz Hadas. We don't allow ourselves to be so self-absorbed, egocentric, narcissistic to the point that we can't see anyone else. We don't eat from that tree. We go back even further. We eat from the Eitz HaChaim. We eat from the Eitz HaChaim. What's that tree of life? We felt that, what it feels like to eat from that tree. That's when there's achdus. That's when there's that surge of connection. When we're connected to each other, and we're connected to our heritage, and we're connected to our Torah, there's a force and a power and a joy in that. We felt the taste of eating from that Eitz HaChaim. And the whole country felt it. And that's how this whole thing started with as we said, with the Pride and the Unity Day and the Achdus organizations and everything. We felt it. It was a wave that got stronger and stronger, and everybody was caught up in it. And it gave us new life. It was like Tchias HaMesim for the country. It was so powerful. That's the Eitz HaChaim. That's what it feels like to eat from the Eitz HaChaim. So we're going backwards. When do we get a chance to eat from the Eitz HaChaim? When does it start? When do we commit ourselves to that? Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. The Torah is our Eitz Chaim. But again, not going through the motions of the laws. Because when we just go through the motions, it essentially means that we're scared, and we need God to treat us okay, so we are doing what we're supposed to do, so he'll do what he's supposed to do, which is, again, back in the trap of viewing God as an instrument. What we really mean is fully feeling the love that Hashem gives us chance after chance after chance after chance, gives us freedom, truly lets us be our own people, forgives us for when we take that to the extreme and do all kinds of damage with that, gives us endless opportunities to start again, and just wants one moment of our lives, if we can achieve it for one moment, right? Yesh kona olama b'shachas, you can earn your world, your real connection in 1 second. One moment of pulling away that veil and seeing the other. Seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we'll see each other, and we'll certainly see ourselves. Nobody will be a threat. Nobody will be an instrument, and we'll all experience the joy again, that thrill again of what it feels like, how good we feel when we eat from the Eitz HaChaim. Yes, Chavi?
Can we define Hevel as opportunity? Hevel?